2024.
Members in attendance, Aaron Sherrick, Kevin Myers, Zion Hickman, I myself, Chris Moritz, Chair. Call to order, 6 o'clock. This time I'd like to open up for public participation.
Ray Thitoff, 210 Ethel Street. Had a quick question. Between everybody's here, I'm hoping they can give me an answer. The companies that are running the lines around town, they've got to my neighborhood finally, and I know they were doing the marking the last couple of days with the paint and everything. And I live on Ethel Street, obviously, where you don't have as much of the right-of-way on the sides of the streets like they do in most other streets here in Bucyrus. And I was wondering what legally, how far they're allowed to come up in my yard, because if they do, like they have been in most of these neighborhoods, they'll basically be up against my house or on my front porch. On the east side of Ethel Street, it's just not mapped out like other neighborhoods. On the county website, it shows an aerial view of properties and lines and everything, and that shows my property line going up to the sidewalk, but then the platting map that I have shows it going to the street. So I don't know exactly what my rights are.
Typically it's going to go to the sidewalk.
Excuse me?
Typically it would go all the way to the sidewalk.
My property line.
Your property line goes to the street, but the utility right-of-way goes up to the sidewalk.
Right, which leaves, there's about a 2-foot tree lawn.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I can expect from them.
They should stay in the tree lawn.
Okay, the 2-foot.
They should not be digging on the other side of the sidewalk.
If they go any farther than 2 feet, they'll be under the sidewalk. So
Right.
I don't know exactly.
It should be on the street side of the
Right.
sidewalk.
Right, like I said, which is 2 feet. So I don't know what they're going to do. So
And that's where the marks are, right?
they just mark the utility lines, gas
But
lines
that's
and
all
stuff.
on that side of the sidewalk, right? The
Oh,
street side.
my gas line goes from the center of the street straight up to my house. So you can't get an idea where they're going to run their lines yet.
Have you spoke to any of their employees yet?
No, they haven't started
So-
digging or anything.
They were on Warren Street 2 days ago when I was over there, and the one girl came up to me and says, "Do you have any questions?" "Thank you for asking." "Yes, I do."
Right.
And so we stood and talked for 15 minutes after that point, and I asked a lot of the questions of the things that were being asked up here. So I guess what I was going to say was flag them down and
Well,
say,
I'm
"Hey."
I'm hoping I'll be home. I mean, I
Yeah.
work during the day. My luck, they're going to be there digging up
They
stuff.
were there, they were out on Warren Street up until 7:30 the last couple nights. But you would want to ask for their project managers who
Well, I assume they look at the maps before they start
they
running
have a
lines
whole
and
big
know where they
spiral
can go.
bound thing with them that it shows a map of every little thing they're doing, so they could be able to flip to that page and tell you exactly what the plan is on your property. I would encourage you, I guess is what I'm saying, to
Well, I'll
actually ask
definitely be out
them.
there asking, especially if they're up where I
Yeah,
feel they shouldn't
but
be.
they'd be able to tell you what their plan was for your property.
I think Mr.
Okay.
Mayor True.
Yeah, I'm just following up with what Kevin said. We actually have prints here at City Hall in the engineering department, and you can actually come and we can actually show you where they're going to put. The service that actually feeds the house will be like about the size of a gallon or 2-gallon can that they'll embed in the ground. They refer that as a flower pot. That's actually where they'll run the wires to.
Now, is that something you can opt out of having? Because I have no interest in having any of this connected to my house.
Now, it's part of that federal,
So it'll have to go in that 2-foot
yes,
between, we don't have curbs,
right.
so it'll be between the street and the sidewalk.
And it all depends on what side of the street, wherever the sewer line runs, it will be opposite of the sewer line. So what they're doing is they're running the lines parallel to the street, and it will follow the water line that feeds the street. So it all depends on where the sewer line is.
So they do go under the street?
Yeah, they'll actually bring in a boring machine and it will
Right.
actually,
I seen them running parallel, but I didn't know they actually went
but
opposite.
they will stay in that little 2-foot ribbon.
Yeah.
Kurt probably can speak to it.
You know the area I'm talking about in
Oh,
front of my
yes,
house.
I mean, it's very intrusive to my feeling that they're invading such a little space.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd rather it be there than up in my
Yeah,
front porch, so,
They're not allowed in there. They're
Okay.
only allowed in that street right away.
okay.
But Tommy can help. I mean, all you have to do is come to the engineering office and we can show you, before you go home tonight, we can show you.
Depends on what time we get out of here.
But the street right-of-ways vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, basically. Right?
Yeah.
There's no set measurement anywhere.
No,
Okay,
no, but it's gotta be within that right of way.
that's all I need to know then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Question for the law director. I was under the understanding that a public utility has eminent domain powers. Are you familiar with that?
Within the right of way, right? So if they wanted to go through your yard, they would have to actually pay for their taking.
Well, so I kind of looked into this further, and temporary encroachment, you know, like on private property, because they're backing these drills up on private
Yeah.
property.
Right.
There's no question about it. They're trying to do those shots across the street, and I've seen them up almost in somebody's front porch before. So temporary encroachment is something that I almost think legally they could make the argument that we have eminent domain powers. We can temporarily encroach on your private property because we need to do that in order to appease this thing that's going through the right of way. Do you see any?
Would they have to get permission?
Yeah,
to
if
do that, though?
it,
Like,
really, the legal process way would be you would have to contact the landowner,
Right.
request for a temporary, it would actually be recorded at the recorder's office and everything, but they're not gonna do that because it takes too much time. But if they really needed to, if somebody was like parking a bulldozer on your property and saying, I'm blocking you from encroaching here temporarily, if they really needed to do what they needed to do, they could go through the court and get that temporary encroachment easement recorded, and then therefore they would be able to do it. So I don't know, I'm just kind of adding that as food for thought in this discussion here.
Yeah, I mean, so I did think that their policy seems to be ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission.
Let me ask you this. I don't know how
Technically,
many of you are familiar with Reed Street, but Reed Street, from the street, there's a sidewalk right up to the street and back, oh gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet.
yeah.
So there is no tree lawn. What do they do in a case like that?
Well, one thing, and you might know more about this, but like in the area down around, I saw them on Charles in Sandusky area, and then running down East Alley. They're doing everything. Brightspeed was there the last couple of days, doing everything above ground instead of underground because of that. Is that the reasoning they're doing it above? Is because there's no way to bore under all the concrete?
The reason that you see a lot of Brightspeed going aerial is they've already got infrastructure they own that's aerial, and they're just overlashing it onto that. And they don't have to get I don't believe they have to get a new agreement for the pole attachment to do that, because they're allowed to overlash their existing stuff. The reason Omni is going all underground, Omni doesn't have anything aerial. They don't have any agreements with AEP, and they initially tried to get, because when they first came to us, they said, we're going all aerial. Well, then they tried to get to the thing with AEP, and AEP was like,
So I guess to tie on to what Ray's question was, what happens in the downtown area where there is no dirt?
Some streets, there's only poles on one side, so I'm assuming they'd be zigzagging back and forth.
they're going back.
As far as going downtown, they're gonna be going down the back alleys. We didn't want them downtown. It's too much to
They're going underground though?
Yeah, everything's gonna be running the alleys for the downtown.
Brightspeed will still go in the poles on the alleys,
Yeah.
but Omni will go in the ground.
Yeah, they were down there today again.
So in my neighborhood, possibly, they could be going above ground.
Well, if it's Brightspeed, because I guess both of them are doing everything from what I'm
It
hearing.
might be their only option.
They're racing against each other right now, trying to get, both companies are trying to get theirs built first so they can
That's
get the customer
reassuring.
first, because more than likely, whoever gets the customer first gets to keep them, because usually people don't switch. That's why everything's being rushed.
Thanks.
Is the project still, May still the deadline for it, or hope for completion if something doesn't happen? Or is it gonna go past that, do you know?
Well, Omni said they want to be out, in and out here by May, and I've heard
There's no way.
there's no way. There's gonna be things come up, and
Okay, so not May probably.
I could see Brightspeed getting done by May.
'Cause they're-
Because,
okay.
you know, you could go down a whole block in an afternoon and be done with it.
Because you're overhead.
Because you're overhead.
Any more public participation? Okay, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes for February 22, 2024, and February 27th, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Hickman first, Sherrick second. My code of discussions for Bucyrus.
You want to hold a vote, Mr. Chair?
Oh, hold a vote.
All in favor?
Sorry about that. Hold a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Motion passed.
Motion passes. I'd like to put a discussion for Bucyrus card ordinance 931-09. Do you have anything on that? Or Tommy?
I gave this.
You gave it to me, yeah.
I gave you all your committee, the
Right.
paperwork. What it is a number of years ago, Service Committee went ahead and put a dollar on everybody's bill, and that dollar was to be collected so we could collect money over a period of time to be able to purchase a chassis that goes underneath the packer, which becomes the garbage truck. And those trucks are so costly, we implemented $1 per month per water customer, and that's how we were able to start purchasing garbage trucks. Then later in life, a number of years ago, they didn't really want to raise any more sewer or more garbage rates, so then they decided that maybe they should take 50 cents away from that dollar so they could hold the garbage rates down, but then that put the replacement of the garbage trucks in peril. And so now then, just recently in 2022 or 23, those notes say, the Service Committee had another meeting, and they decided, well, you know, they're going to get farther and farther behind on purchasing new garbage trucks. So they went ahead and said, let's go ahead and put the 50 cents back on and bring that fee back up to $1 per water customer. And so it came out of the committee as yes, they were going to do it, but then there was no legislation that reflected the wishes of the past service director.
So we're wanting to make legislation to put that back up to $1 then from the 50 cents?
Yes. It was the wishes of,
Right.
it was the wishes of the last committee. It just never got reflected into the city ordinance. But I provided the notes that says that they voted Wagner or wished for it to be put back on, but it just never happened.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the mayor a couple questions? Just to clarify, so your position is that where we had backed it down to 50 cents, And at the time, I remember it was because they felt like we were banking too much money in there. We weren't going to spend it all to buy garbage trucks anytime soon. I think because they were putting a new packer or an old packer on a new chassis. So you're saying that we need to raise it back to $1 because we're not going to be able to afford a new truck when the next time comes to replace it. That's where we're at. Okay.
And we're being very frugal with our money for the sake that after the garbage truck runs through its useful life, the packer itself is the one that really takes the beating, which is actually what you throw the garbage in, and it compacts the garbage. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take that packer off, we'll take that chassis, and we'll actually go ahead and go purchase a new dump body, and we will be making a large dump truck. That's how we keep replenishing our large dump trucks, is we use old garbage trucks, because those chassis last for many, many years. So, but the replacement fund is so you can go buy a new chassis as well as a new packer.
Okay, wait, I was sitting here for those discussions and I'm really confused right now. So you're trying to raise the rates or just move money?
Now, we're actually trying to reinstate the dollar replacement fund. That's what that is.
Right now it's 50
Currently,
cents.
it's 50 cents on your trash bill goes to that.
Okay, hold up. This is all stemming from this meeting here that he handed out the other night, which was July 21st, 2022, okay? And it was when Rumpke was trying to come in and they were gonna switch our trash, or the only way we could do it is if we raised the rates. But as part of this, 50 cents of those raised rates would go back to the replacement fund, is what they said at that point in time. So it was just rearranging some of the money and where it went. So you want to raise it again?
Just for what? Yes. It was a dollar in there. It was a dollar replacement fund. That's the only way the city can buy a garbage truck and a packer, because they're so costly. You have to bank your money over a number of years to be able to make that large purchase.
Are we not putting the 50 cents in that we're supposed to be at this point in time, or are we?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that money is being put in the
But
replacement
then
fund.
what the feeling was of that committee in 2022 is to go ahead and put that additional 50 cents back on, so you could bring it back up to the original dollar that it used to be able to do it. And it was discussed in 2022, but it never became a piece of legislation.
Do you have your trial balance with you?
I do.
I'm looking at mine right now, trying to find that line. What's the current balance in that replacement fund?
It would be solid waste.
Mm-hmm.
Replacement, yeah.
931.
Well, that's the top ordinance, but that's what it should be called.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Racing to see who finds it first.
Right. What was the question specifically, Kevin? I found the solid waste replacement fund.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trial balance, yeah.
But it is in the codified ordinance 50 cents, which what you're asking is
Yep.
strike the 50, make it back to $1.
Do we know why it went down to 50 cents in the first place? Oh, just because I thought there was too much.
At the time, they felt like we had too much money in that, not, you never want to say too much money, but we had enough money in
enough
there
money.
that by continuing to add $1 from every customer every month, that it was going to be extremely higher to what our needs were going to be at the time. That was before the prices of trucks and everything skyrocketed and everything else, but.
So are we willing to make legislation to put it back up to?
Well, did you find it?
I did find the solid waste replacement fund. What was your question specifically?
What's the current balance in the fund that we're discussing?
So the cash carryover from 2023 to 2024 was $189,527.29.
Yeah, so that's not even enough to buy one new truck and packer.
Yeah, our projected revenue in that fund is about $56,000 a year.
Yeah, so that would change that to make it $112,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that would probably be about 5 or 6 years to actually replace a truck then. at the current cost of what the trucks are now.
Cal, it's just like the individual homeowner, you can't go out and buy a brand new car, you gotta save for it. And that's the idea, it's costing the average resident $12 a year.
Well, and not to get too far off topic with that, Mr. Moritz, but one of the things that I had brought up several years ago was I found it interesting that we were doing this for our garbage trucks, but we have an entire city fleet of vehicles.
I know.
I wished
Yep.
we were doing this for everything. So I like what the mayor just said, that, you know, we can do this now and plan ahead for it, or we can go out and buy it on a loan and pay interest on it, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's one of my thoughts too when I seen this was we should be doing it for the fire department.
for every vehicle that the
Yeah.
city owns, we should be
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Somehow.
Yeah.
That would get us a lot more hot water down the line that we're in now.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion requesting legislation that authorizes returning that fee collected from 50 cents back up to $1.
Second.
If I could, one moment. Mr. Mayor, do you feel any need that needs to be an emergency, or are you okay with regular
No,
legislation?
I'm okay with it.
I was gonna say,
My motion will stand.
Mr. Myers made a motion, Zion seconded it.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All right.
Motion passes. Have to open a discussion for purchasing of land, the EPA. Tommy, do you want to speak on that one?
Tommy Starner, Safety Service Director. We have a chance to purchase some land. You guys all have a map in front of you. The lady actually lives in one of the one of the far corners, and the land is in between the two railroad tracks. This is where our force main is going to actually be. So we just want to, we have the chance to purchase the land for a very, very good price, and just want to make sure that this goes through council and gets.
We're talking about the plot that's outlined in blue?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
And-
about an acre.
Okay.
It's 9 point.
Explain real quick, what's the benefit to us owning it versus having access to it?
We won't have to get an easement from
Okay.
anyone. We went to, that's why we even were even thinking about doing it. Went to our lady's house to get an easement, or to talk to her about getting one. She says she doesn't want to pay her $18 a year for taxes, or half
Yeah.
for taxes anymore. And it was a crazy number thrown out, so
Are you able to share the number?
am I able to share the number?
Sure.
$500.
Done.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to go ahead and buy that land.
I'll second that.
And so
by-
we have been trying to get easements back to CSO5 for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And lining up all of the easements back there has been a struggle. So this would be
And this rectifies that whole problem.
almost all.
Almost
We
all.
still have to get to that, but almost all.
That
Now we
rectifies
ask for a vote.
And there's,
where actually everything is going, is right in that area.
there's nothing there that we have to maintain, no mowing or anything, because it's
It's all
wooded.
small plan,
Yeah.
so.
Like to have a vote on this?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any more open projects we want to talk about? Seeing none, any more public participation for anything? Seeing none, going to adjourn at 6:25.
Health and Safety Committee, March 7th, 2024.
I call the Health and
Guys,
I call the Health and Safety Committee meeting to order at 6:26 PM. Members present are Kevin Myers, C. Aaron Sherrick, James Me, and myself, Vicki DeShawn, as chair. Public participation, if you wish to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect. There's been a lot of discussion on overtime at the fire department. I don't think everybody fully understands what is causing the overtime. They say that all the firemen are making over $100,000 a year, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta stop this." The reason that is happening is because there's not an appropriate number of employees there, which causes when people take days off, their vacation and things, somebody's forced to come in their stead, which therefore causes an overtime situation. If the police department was 4 people less, you will see an increase in overtime in the police department because somebody's going to have to work more to make up for them being short-staffed. It's the same scenario. So I guess I wanted to, because you had mentioned, I think I've heard you mention multiple times, Kevin, that the solution to overtime at the fire department is to reduce it, is to add more employees.
May I respond?
Sure.
Exactly. And that's what we talked about when you and I were involved in the initial discussions, when we raced in the very early stages of trying to talk about putting together a plan to take on the EMS. It was known at that time by all of us that there was going to be overtime. That was something that we just knew was going to happen because the former auditor sat there and said it is cheaper for you to have an employee working those overtime hours than it is to hire an additional employee because you're not buying them a new uniform. You're not paying for their hospitalization and insurance. You're not paying for their retirement system. And so that was a decision that was made to say, well, we're going to know that this is a problem that was going to be accomplished. And we have that delicate balance that we have to do of, I don't want to burn our employees out by continuing to expect them to work overtime, but that is why, you're correct, Kurt, a lot of them are making more money than what you or I are making because they're working a lot more time.
Yeah, some of them, they work a day, they get 2 days off, they work a day, they get 2 days off. Because of the short staffing situation, some of them are working 2 days and only getting 1 day off, and then they're working 2 days.
That, your traditional 9 to 5 person is working 8 hours a day. They're working 24 hours a day, which, if I remember right, it was about 104 days a year less that they're working. But they're working, I think it was like 500 some hours, or maybe it was 1,000 hours a year more on that schedule. So you're right. It's not apples to apples comparison. And when we've heard people making reference to comparing the police department and fire department, they're 2 different animals, and I hate to see the 2 pitted against each other because they're both an essential service, but their scheduling is different, their needs are different.
And theoretical. So page 52 of the Kramer report, which I thought I had with me here in my binder, but I don't have it. I had handed some copies out Tuesday night. Page 52 of the Kramer report showed that if you wanted to add 2 employees per shift, you had to hire so many employees total because you have 2 employees for shift A, which is I'm going to go 3 days at a time here. The first day, another 2 employees for the second day, another 2 employees for the third day. So if you just quickly are thinking about that in your head, you think, okay, we want to have 2 additional employees per shift, we need to hire 6. Well, what the Kramer report actually had in it was you need to hire 8. Because we didn't account for, when we did ultimately hire 6, but we didn't account for, well, these guys have contracted vacation days that they're allowed to have, and sick time and that.
And Kelly days.
And so essentially, we just to get the thing up and running, we hired the 6, and then I don't know if the intention was to readdress it later or just kind of run with that for a while and see what it would do. Well, obviously, it's causing overtime. And we are at the point now where, the overtime is like 600,000, but you could probably hire 3 people. It'll bring the overtime down, and it doesn't actually cost you more than what you were already paying.
Well, it does, because then we'd be paying 3 more people's insurance and hospitalization, 3 more people's PER, or police and fire pension, and 3 more people's uniform allowances.
Yeah, but they're not getting the double time and stuff, or the time and a half.
Yeah, the auditor said the time and a half was still cheaper at that time than.
I would like to see what the numbers would look like if we did 3 hires, how much that would actually cost in a year's time, how much that would save in overtime.
I suppose we could request the auditor and fire chief work together to present that number to us.
Because, right now.
Because you have time to do that, right?
Right now, these guys they're working their tails off, basically.
Yeah,
They're not,
you don't want to burn them out.
Yeah, and so you work 2 days, you get 1 day off, and then you're told, well, you could still get a call in on that 1 day off, so you can't really do anything on your day
Well,
off.
until you've worked that schedule, you don't understand that when you're running your entire 24 hours with little cat naps here and there, what do you do when you get off at 8 a.m.? You go home and go to bed. You take that next day. That's why that schedule was invented that way. You take that next day to go home and recover and rest. And
So as I take it right now, is at your convenience, and when you have time, you're going to run the numbers to see if we do 3 full-time hires, what will that look like as far as saving overtime? Okay, that's all I got.
can we have that by noon tomorrow? I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
What? You're giving her till noon?
Anybody else wish to speak?
Right that off 210 Ethel Street. I keep hearing all this hire, and it's been in the back of my mind. I've been wondering for a while now, whatever happened to volunteer firemen? Is that an option these days? When I was a kid, my dad was a volunteer for Bucyrus, and he would get called when there's a fire. I haven't heard anybody say anything about volunteer.
I could answer that if you'd like me to.
If you would like to.
So that was called, in reference here in town, it's called paid on call. And they were also called the Minutemen, was what they were referenced. So they never had a true volunteer department, in our lifetime. The townships are all still volunteer. And so the last, if I recall correctly.
I think it was unpaid when I was
Well,
5
yeah,
years old.
they called them paid on call. That was their job title in our billet and manpower ordinance. If I recall, the last paid on call firefighter that I think we had was Greg Northrup. If that tells you how many years ago that we utilized that. One of the reasons was the training requirements had gone through the roof during that time, and it was almost impossible to keep up with that. In the fire service, there's 3 tiers or 3 levels of certification. You have your basic firefighter, and then there's an intermediate level, and then your professional firefighter, what they call the 240-hour class, versus your volunteer class is a 36-hour class. And so the professional firefighting standards call for your full-time departments to have the 240-hour certification. That's just the fire certification, not including hazmat, EMS, and all that other stuff. And so to find somebody that would obtain that level of training and continue with all the continuing education was pretty much non-existent. It was why they stopped using that.
But it is something that's still, allowed. We're still
It's allowed, yeah,
put it out there
to be able to find that person who has that training and certification who's
Could that be an
close
option
enough.
that maybe they could explore?
Well, and that's one of the things we've asked the administration and the fire department to sit down in their labor negotiations. I'm sure that's something that if it hasn't come up now that they've heard that they probably will have that discussion. Maybe they'll let us know where that goes.
I was just wondering, thanks.
Anybody else? Next, we have approval of minutes from the February 15th, 2024 Special Health and Safety Committee meeting, and the approval of minutes from the, did I say February 22nd? The first, I wanted to say February 15th if I didn't. 2024 Special Health and Safety Committee meeting and approval of minutes from the February 22nd, 24 regular Health and Safety Committee meeting. I trust everyone's looked over the minutes. Have no questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 15th, 2024 Special Health and Safety Committee meeting and the February 22nd, 2024 regular Health and Safety Committee meetings.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sherry, second by Mr. Me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the 90-day stop sign trial on Pearl Street. Mr. Myers and I have been talking, and there's nothing for us to do at this time. The trial period, once it's finished, then there's a report to the Traffic Commission. If the Traffic Commission wishes the council then to address this 90-day stop sign, making it permanent, then they'll make that request. It'll be referred to the proper committee and then...
This committee.
Oh, this committee. Duh! And then we'll vote on it.
Right.
So nothing to do right now, just wait for the...
In the open projects until they...
Sure.
Well, it really doesn't need to be in the open projects because if it is something that the Traffic Commission wants, then they'll send us a letter, at which time we would take it up.
So we can go ahead and do that.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys have, as a Traffic Commission, you have the full authority to make a 90-day trial on anything that you guys want to do, and we as a council or we as a committee don't have a say-so in that. I know I talked to the mayor the other night, he said, we just want to let you know. I love it. But that's something that when you guys give your reports on the Traffic Commission, you can just tell us what you're up to, and we're golden.
Okay, next on the agenda, street closures for cruising with the cops. We have a letter from the treasurer of the FOP Lodge, number 68. They're having their annual, again, Cruising with the Cops Custom and Classic Car Show. I'll just read quickly here the letter. It says, we would like to close the 100 block of East Warren Street from 7 a.m. till 12 a.m. midnight for the food court, Sandusky Avenue from Mary Street to Oakwood Avenue from 12 p.m. until 12 a.m. And they would also like to close Washington Square, 100 blocks of East and West Mansfield Street, 100 block of West Warren Street, 100 blocks of East and West Rensselaer Street, and the 100 block of East and West Charles Street from 12 p.m. till 12 a.m. And this is going to be held on Saturday, June the 8th, 2024. Does anybody have any questions?
No. Do you want to do these?
Oh, excuse me. This can go as a non-emergency.
Correct. They gave them, both of them, with clear enough notice.
Right.
My question was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
do you want to do them as separate requests, or would you mind if I made
I would like to do them separate.
Well, then I will request legislation for the street closures for the cruising with the cops.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Myers, second by Ms. Sherry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okey-doke. Next, we have the letter from the Bucyrus Police Explorers, Post 229, and they are wanting to have their annual Bucyrus 5-0 Bike Show. And that's going to be held on Saturday, July 27th from noon to 7:30 p.m. And they're having it in the area on the east side of Washington Square, including the eastmost north-south alleyways and the city-owned parking lot located between Millennium and Picking Parks. The vendors will set up around 9 a.m. that morning, and the event ends between 7 to 7:30 p.m., and it is just a one-day event. That piece also can go as a non-emergency.
I would like to request legislation for street closure for the 5-0 bike show.
I'll second that one.
Motion by Mr. Myers, second by Ms. Sherry. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Sean, could I ask the law director a question?
Sure.
Is there a reason why on these routine annual events, is there any way that we could just grant the authority to the administration as they do in a parade permit for anything else? Especially these two being one-day events versus like the Browers Festival being 4 days of street closures. But we're paying to write legislation every year for the same thing that happens, excuse me, every year. Is there a way that we can grant the administration the ability to just do this without council's approval, especially for repeat type things that happen year after year?
Good, yeah.
Is that something you'll check into? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that there would be an issue doing it. I'll have to look at it, but yeah, I don't
Okay.
know that there would be a problem.
I mean, you look at just those 3 events, there's $600 worth of legislation every year.
What was your third event?
Huh? The Bratwurst Festival.
Oh, yeah. I was counting the 2 police things,
Yeah. Thank you.
Okey-doke. Next, we have on the agenda tenant roster, Bucyrus Codified Ordinance 189.22, the penalty fee. Everyone had in their packet the draft that the law director had prepared. In fact, it was a draft that had been given to you at the last meeting. I don't know, Mr. Gernert, if you wanted to make any more comments. I know the...
Yeah, so right now, the way that it's styled would just be a civil penalty. I think that Mr. Mee had responded to the email that I had sent out, indicating that that was the preference, at least for him. If the committee wanted to, theoretically, you could make it a classified misdemeanor, and then go through the criminal portion, but and then those numbers that I have in there were simply, kind of off of the top of my head from sort of other similar provisions in our code for fines for failing to do things. And then I think Mr. Mee had talked last time about somehow utilizing the tenant roster to be able to get property owners, make them whole, and I guess I don't necessarily understand exactly. But so if we were going to, the tenant roster would be something that would be submitted, and it would be similar to like tax records. We would keep them internally, and I suppose we could share them within ourselves. So if the water department wanted to reference the tax department to see if we had a better address, great. But disclosing those to outside third parties or collectors or something to that effect, we would probably not be in the business of redisclosing people's private information as far as that goes. I don't know exactly the nature of your question, but I was reading the minutes from last time, and that was my thought on those.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be any violation of sharing
Right.
anything.
So we would
everything
keep it all.
internal.
Right, yeah, we would keep it all.
Yeah,
We would not be subject to redisclosure, those rosters.
but you would share within the
Within the,
water department?
right,
and-
yeah,
okay.
intra-department, but not outside of the city.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily need to be in the penalty provision. That would just need to be, did I use that word wrong?
No, you're good.
That would not be, that would not be in the provisions. That would just be based upon our own policies and our public record request policies.
Okay.
Mr. Myers?
Couple of questions. I understand why we want to do this. It makes perfect sense to me. But how do we know, number one, if I'm a property owner, how do we know that we're getting every property owner being asked this? I know that if I own a property and have you as my tenant putting the water into your name, but what if I only own one property and I've left the water in my name? You're not, I feel like, are we missing people, and are we singling different people out where we're forgetting other people? So what's the process? I don't know what the process is. I haven't had time to ask that question. I don't know if you knew the answer to that or not. And then my other question, it's not really a question. I had a real estate agent call me today and just heard about this and wanted some information, and I shared with them kind of what the mentality behind it was, and they're like, well, we think that the State Realtor Association is opposed to such legislation, and when this realtor heard about it, she said, I think the Real Estate Association is going to come and oppose you doing this. Don't know why yet, which I still would like to learn what their reasoning is, but that was just brought to me today, that they would oppose any legislation requiring a landlord to submit such roster. So just wanted to share ask that question and share that statement.
I don't know if you know how we collect that.
For the tenant roster, so what we're doing is kind of like you were saying, if you are the landlord and you own that property, and then you,
But how do you know? So when I got mine in the mail, how did you know that I was the landlord and not just owning a house and living in it? I guess is where I'm coming from.
that's a good question. I can ask
Did
Kelly
it,
Schimpf.
did it start in the utility office?
No, it starts in the income tax office, I believe. Like Kelly can
I guess that's where how does the income tax office know if I own property, who lives in it, or that it's a rental versus?
It's on your tax form you're supposed to.
20-some years ago,
Ken, would you please? Thank you.
Ken Long, 625 South Spring Street. Approximately 20, 25 years ago, somebody in the building here came up with a great idea that we're going to register landlords. Okay, and so everybody had a number. Now, for example, my last name starts with an L. I'm dead set in the middle of the alphabet. But I am landlord number 1. Okay, got no idea how.
Who'd
but
you make mad?
yeah, exactly. That's my point. It was a kangaroo court decision then, and it just keeps on blossoming. So I'm going to guess that somewhere along the line you had a tenant that wanted to get water turned on. They figured out it was your name, and all of a sudden you went on a list. Okay, obviously you didn't raise your hand and say you're going to do this, and neither did I. But that's how that thing started. But it's an old list. I don't know if it's the still list they're using, but that's just one way. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Well, then don't you also, when you file your income tax return, they make you file your 1040 along with the city, at least I do, and on there you would show like rental income? And that would alert,
But does that break it out by address?
We wouldn't know how many rentals you own, but we would know which people.
But when I got
landlords.
my form, it listed every address.
Well, then, because you sent in your 1040 with your rental income or whatever, Schedule C, then we can cross-reference it by the houses that you own with the Crawford County Auditor's website.
Okay.
But yeah, when you file your
It's
taxes.
honestly, I don't know the answer. I'm curious.
And I don't know exactly how the tax department populates it, but when I file my taxes as a tenant, I'm also supposed to fill out the top right-hand corner of the tax thing saying that I'm a tenant and that good stuff. I don't own my road.
Yeah.
And I know that not everybody fills out that
Is the
box.
goal here to make sure that we're making sure that everybody should be paying income taxes, paying? Is that what we're really after?
Biggest base is income tax, yeah.
I think you're right, Kevin. I think there's people slipping through the cracks in certain scenarios. And I've thought about this for a while. Probably years. This is an opportunity, I think. There's two people that at minimum know that there is a person renting a house. The person renting the house, the person that owns the house. Okay? The person that rents the house, they might want to try to slip under the radar and, not pay any income tax potentially. But the person that owns the house, we can pass a law saying you have to do this, whether they actually all voluntarily comply, that's a whole nother thing. But I think this is an opportunity where we can combine the issue with property maintenance and things with the International Property Maintenance Code, that a form of such can be, picked up at the utility office or handed out at the utility office or whatever. And the landlord, when he rents his rental unit out, he could have his tenant fill this out. He can say, hey, you're renting this from me, I need you to fill this out. And they fill it out, they put their name, address on it, whatever. And there's also a line on there that says, I, as a tenant, agree to comply with the International Property Maintenance Code, particularly the parts that say there's a tenant obligation to do, like cleaning up the trash or something. So there, we've kind of solved two problems with one paper. Because the landlord will turn that paper into the city will have it, the city can then use that to enforce its income tax. And at the same time, if Brian's office gets a complaint of property maintenance regarding things that the maintenance code says the occupant is responsible for, he now has a list to know, okay, this is the occupant. I can send that letter to the occupant now. I'll CC the property owner themselves, but now I have officially sent the letter to the right person, and now we get out of this whole thing where it's a fighting match on who's actually responsible. Is it the occupant or the landlord when certain things need cited for that the International Property Maintenance Code specifically states occupant is responsible for? So, I mean, does that sound like a
Yeah,
good
that's
idea?
exactly what Jim Mee brought up a couple weeks ago, where, if his tenant left trash laying around, it's okay to cite the tenant, but you as the property owner want to know that. And I think that's exactly right.
In the letter that Brian would send out, he could get the copy of the person that had signed that thing, and they check the box. It says, yes, I agree that I will comply with the International Property Maintenance Code provisions regarding occupant.
And I know why we want to be doing this. We want to make sure everybody that should be paying their taxes is paying their taxes. I get it. But I'm not comfortable saying that I want to impose a penalty on somebody until you can prove to me that every person who owns a property that's renting it to somebody, I want to know more about the system, how we're determining who gets that registration and who doesn't, because I can guarantee you there are some landlords that are not getting that. I spoke to one that said, I never have gotten that. So
We need to partner with the landlords in a way that they provide this information to us. They go out and get their tenant to sign it, and then they give it to us, and then, we can, over time, eventually we have fully accurate information that's been collected on who all's in all these.
yeah. If you get utility services, you have to bring in a copy of your lease. So I get that, but in the instance where the landlord keeps the water in their name, that never occurs.
But if we do this other thing that I'm talking about, he would still have an incentive himself
Right,
to get his tenant to sign the paper, because he's thinking, okay, I can get out of this
I'm agreeing with you.
liability situation with the International Property Maintenance Code
Yeah,
citation.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Ken Long, 625 South Spring Street. A couple weeks ago, I think it was at the same meeting, I mentioned that I don't know. First of all, I'm for this, because anybody can help pay tax, I'm good. Okay, so I'm on that team. Okay, but as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I don't know if I can legally give you information. Now, I like Kurt's idea about the form, because then it's not on me, because the mean old city makes you fill this thing out. Okay, so I'm off. I'm just like the middleman. I'm giving it to my tenant. You'd have them required to fill it out. I'm just the administrator of it to get it to you. I like that, because I'm still having a struggle with, if thou shalt, provide all these names and numbers. I don't know if we can legally do that.
I'm going to throw a rhetorical question at the auditor. I'm going to use Mr. Long as an example here. So what we're doing right now is we want Mr. Long to tell you the names of every tax-paying person in every one of his houses, right? Mm-hmm. Are you requiring Mr. Long to tell you the names of all the tax-paying people in his house? If he has a child that lives with him or a spouse that lives with him?
No.
Thank you.
I brought that up 2 weeks ago also. You're getting, let's just say a third of the properties in town here are rentals. That's exciting, okay? But you got 2/3 that have, grandpa living with you, adult age sons and daughters or whoever. You're missing the mark. And once again, this is a clear-cut case of we have great legislation to tag landlords. There's a whole lot of other folks out there that need to be involved in all this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with all that being said,
I would sure as heck like to table this until we can get some more information and maybe come up with a little bit better of an attack plan to make sure that we're gathering the information that they deservedly want to and need to know, but we're doing it in a fair and equitable manner to all of our residents.
how does the committee feel?
I pay my taxes, I don't know.
Pardon?
I said I pay my taxes, I don't know.
Let's table it.
I mean, as far as you're fine with tabling it for right
Yeah.
now? Okay, great. Next, open projects. Anybody have any open projects to discuss? Next, public participation again. Seeing no one. Before we adjourn the meeting, I would like to make a couple comments to the Crawford County Now article that appeared in today's Crawford County Now, entitled Bucyrus City Councilwoman Vicki DeShawn Delays Motion to Repeal the Fire Department Ordinance. First off, I want to thank the Crawford County Now, as well as the Telegraph Forum, for covering our meetings. However, when they cover, I do have a problem if it's not, if the information that is reported is not correct. And with that being said, I would like to correct their misstatements. First off, they state, during Tuesday's Bucyrus City Council meeting, Councilwoman Vicki DeShawn decided to table her motion to repeal the city ordinance mandating at least 6 employees on duty at the fire department. My response, the motion to repeal was not made by me, but it was made by Councilmember James Mee at the February 22nd Health and Safety Committee meeting. I also did not decide to table the motion. Secondly, the article states, the motion to repeal the ordinance will be put on hold until the administration and fire department representatives have the opportunity to convene and explore potential money-saving alternatives. My response, the motion has not been put on hold. In fact, I don't even think you can put a motion on hold. It is the subject matter that's been put on hold. Next and lastly, it says, while DeShawn withdrew her motion, for the time being, she noted that recent training had informed her of the option to second her own motion and break a tie with her vote as the Health and Safety Committee chairperson. My response, again, I did not make the motion nor withdraw the motion. I also did not state that I could second my own motion. I stated that while attending the OML seminar this past weekend, I was informed that as a committee chair, I have the ability to make a motion, second a motion, vote on a motion, and break a tie. For further clarification, the chair can either make a motion or second the motion. The chair can either vote on a motion or vote to break the tie. In other words, I can't do all four at one time. And so I think that's the main thing I want the public to understand, that I can't make the motion and then second the motion and then vote on the motion and then if there's a tie, break it. That's not how it works.
You don't need the rest of us, do you?
Exactly. Thank you.
I would like to say really quick that I'm with you because they butchered my part of it too and did not put across what I was here to put across, and I'm not a single mother.
I feel like,
They said I'm a single mother advocating for single, which I am advocating for single mothers, but.
I feel like we could have a section of every meeting.
It just didn't feel like they didn't listen to anything that was projected, and that was disappointing to me. And they spelled my last name wrong. So that's not
Been there.
my business.
I feel like we could have a section of every meeting clarifying what our 2 news outlets report on every week.
Well, thank you for listening. Going to adjourn the meeting at 7:00 p.m.
Public Lands and Buildings Committee, March 7th, 2024.
All right, I'm going to call Public Lands and Buildings Committee to order at 7:02 p.m. Members present are Zion Hickman, Carolyn Shireman, Christopher Moritz, and myself, C. Aaron Sherrick, Chair. Do we have any public participation for Public Lands and Buildings?
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. On tonight's agenda, you are talking about selling the city-owned lots by Wendy's. I would like to see this go through. I think the land should be sold to Wendy's to expand their parking area and help the business, a local business out. The cost of that land, I think, should be very minimum, just to get rid of the property. Second of all, the selling of the North Fire Station. I've done a little bit of research on that, and I would like to see this committee look at possibly creating a small business enterprise zone on that building. there is state funding available for this, to where you can allow to get state and federal dollars to be brought in to have this building used by small businesses to start their businesses. Okay? I think it's a worthwhile interest in just selling a piece of property that the building could be used for other purposes. Third, the land for the airport. I'm 100% for this. I think this is a no-brainer, such type of situation. That land should be given to the Airport Commission to allow them to expand parking and their own interest in what's going on at the airport, rather than turning it into just plain farmland and putting crops in there. Thank you.
Kevin Myers, 421 West Oakwood. I want to tag on to two things Mr. White said. First, as far as the selling of the lots by Wendy's, I want to refresh everybody's memory that when Wendy's went through their last reconstruction, they were offered that land and they declined. While I agree that those lots aren't doing us a whole heck of a lot of good other than maybe during car shows and the Browers Festival and, busy times of the year, I don't agree with letting them go at a minimal cost. I think that business is who is profiting off of that space. That's where their employees are parking. If I were to buy that lot and prohibit them from parking there, there is not enough parking places on their property for their employees to park and their customers. So I think if you do decide that you want to let them go, I think it should be, at a fair market value at least, if not open to public bid. Not if you go through the CIC, which is what we've done for some other, we got rid of our last city parking lot through the CIC to benefit a business, which I'm all about helping the business out, but in this instance, this business was offered this and declined. And then as far as the, Mr. White brought up the enterprise zone, I do believe, I don't have a map with me, but I do believe that that area already is an enterprise zone, but we'd have to double check that. Thanks.
Any further public participation? Okay, seeing none, we have the minutes from February 22nd, 2024, regular Public Lands and Buildings Committee meeting, and we have the minutes from the January 18th, 2024, regular Public Lands and Buildings Committee meeting. I believe you all have had a chance to go over those, or
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
So you'll make a motion to do what?
To accept and
approve.
file the minutes.
Approve.
Approve, sorry. To approve the minutes from the regular Public Lands and Buildings Committee meeting on February 22nd, and the amended minutes from the regular Public Lands and Buildings meeting on January 18th.
All in favor? Oh, I have a first from Mr. Hickman, a second from Mr. Moritz.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. All right, next on here, we have the selling of the city-owned lots by Wendy's. The administration brought this in. Did they have something to?
Tommy Starner, Service Safety Director. Just selling the two lots around, you guys all have a map of that, right? Or, picture, it's a picture. It's selling just the two lots it'd be on the north side of Wendy's and on the west side of Wendy's. So it was just mentioned to us by another employee of the city, saying that we don't really do anything with those lots, so we thought we'd bring it up to see if you guys would be interested in selling them. And the potential of Wendy's maybe buying it and rerouting their driveway for their drive-through, maybe coming in on the north side through that lot is possibly a potential. And then they also use the west lot there as their main parking lot. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Mr. Truca, you had something to add?
What what I have to add is that business that's there currently, it actually utilizes those spaces. But there is another business that's in close proximity that they would be interested in, like Mr. Gerner's saying, it would be open to open bid. I mean, it would be to whatever business would see fit. The other plus would be for the city is getting away from the maintenance end of it, as well as you think that it's actually an alley between Wendy's and Clady's, but it is not an alley. It's actually a parking lot. It just is utilized as an alley, but it's not an alley.
Which prevents us from using street funds to fix it.
Correct. So you're as well as the other flip side of it is it helps the sewer fund. It actually helps stormwater. You're selling the lot, you're getting rid of the maintenance of the lots. You might be helping the business out on either business or in close proximity. It can become a parking lot for extra parking for the individual businesses, whoever would purchase it, as well as actually adding to helping separate storm sewer. So there's quite an advantage all the way around. But we're offering it, we're thinking that there's some way of actually helping the businesses that are in the immediate area, helping the citizens, as well as helping stormwater as well, and helping eliminate the maintenance costs.
So what exactly do we need from this committee at this time?
Probably
Mr.
what,
Garrett?
yes, please.
Well, so on the one hand, you could authorize to go out to bid and put a reserve on it if you wanted to. On the other hand, you could authorize it to be transferred to the CIC and then have the administration explore private sales of that. Or we could gather more information and reconvene at a later date. I don't know if Mr. Mayor Retruca had any other.
My other suggestion would be is somehow it would be paid for by the purchasing person, but actually have a professional let the committee know how much those two properties are worth. You know, hire someone that actually deals in commercial real estate. And that way the committee, the citizens are getting the going value of that property, what it's actually worth, instead of, you know, having us or having it go to an actual bid. Yes, have a reserve on it according to the professional.
Carolyn?
Can we table this?
Why?
What do we do, vote now?
Well, right now, the question is, do we want to go ahead and vote to have them have permission to go out and get?
Oh, I thought we was wanting more information from what Bruce was talking about, the potential. Okay, never mind. I misunderstood.
We can send them out to find out the information, or we could give them the permission to go out to bid on it with the expectancy that they find this information out and they give us that minimum bid up.
Okay.
So that we could
That's where I
speed
got
that process up.
Yeah.
But we would need somebody to make a motion.
I understand.
So,
What?
I also don't know if this is currently one legal description or two legal descriptions. Do you guys? So I would have to figure out if it's all in one big legal description. We would also have to get somebody to survey it and split. Well, McKeever and Associates would have to split it for us. So that's a simple 5-second exercise, but I just don't know the answer to that.
So
anyways,
do we need to do that before we give them permission to go out, or as a part of?
you can go out and do what you guys want to do, and we'll figure that out. And if we run into a snafu,
You'll bring it back.
we have an engineer that will fix it for us. Keywordness is, yes.
And just so that everybody, the public knows, our engineering firm is McKeever and Associates. We contract with McKeever and Associates, so that would just be one service that they would just do an additional service for us. We already have contract with them as being our engineering company.
Right, they do a lot of our legal real estate research for easements and that type of stuff.
Okay, so what we need then is a motion to allow the administration to find out the legal descriptions and split property as necessary, find out the true value of it, and be allowed to go out to bid on said property, correct?
Correct, and that has to come back to you.
Before we can sell.
So,
So you'd like to make that motion?
yes.
Okay, Shireman with a first and Mr. Hickman with a second.
No emergency.
Not as emergency, no.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion is passed. All right. Now we're talking about the purchasing of the land by the EPA, which we had just talked about in a previous committee. Service, yeah. So, I guess it's just as a public lands.
That is an emergency.
I think that what we were doing was just informing council, but it's a $500 purchase, so the administration had the ability to do that.
Right,
We just
so
wanted to
we're
let
just-
you know that we were proceeding, and we're going to be proceeding fairly quickly so as to take advantage of the price.
All right. So we don't have to do anything with that? We don't
And
have to give you your,
afterwards, it will come into this committee to manage it.
we don't have to give you our blessing?
You can give us your blessing.
Is
Aaron,
anybody
please.
opposed to this?
No, I'm not.
I didn't think so. All right. So you got the blessing.
Thank you.
All right, then the selling of the North Fire Station.
I have a question. Greg, when you said keeping it and letting new businesses use it or whatever, right?
Yeah, create a small business enterprise zone. I'm sorry. Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. Basically taking the old fire station and getting state and federal money to turn that into a small business enterprise zone like other communities do, where basically a small business can come in there and do their startup in there.
So who pays to update the building?
And there's funds available through the Ohio Department of Development. There's all kinds of federal and state funds out
Okay,
there.
that's all I wanted to know.
Okay?
If I may, who was the company that was looking into it originally? REM?
They're gone. Whoever was looking into it originally. The original ones are gone. There might be a few others thinking about it, but that's why they were asking.
But yeah, but RAM was the company that you guys had reached out to you guys, right?
We were hoping to not really forecast that, but it come out.
Gotcha. But it's also,
We were approached.
it's also public property, so unless you guys put it in the CIC, it would be a public bid type situation.
The building has sat vacant for many, many years. It had flooding issue. It was damaged. City workers went in. It could have been rescued at one time, but it wasn't. And then, being that it's sat for so long, a lot of the cabinetry in there wicked up moisture, from not being rescued when it should have been rescued, and so then they stripped the building. And so none of the original things were ever replaced. So, you know, if there's a future use for a business, it would be a business that would have to go in there and actually refurbish the inside of the building. The city of Bucyrus did pay to put a new roof on it or repair it. They went ahead and put new garage doors on it. The insurance company paid to have the garage doors replaced on it. But all the floor tiles and all that, they have all since been removed because they all peeled up, and so all that's been not replaced. There was insurance money out there, but it never got done. That money was, I believe, was put in the general fund and has since been expended somewhere else. So, you know, that, if the city wanted to do anything with it, then we would have to find money to refurbish the interior of the building.
I have a question. The previous administration had said something about allowing the fire department to use it for something, but then they didn't allow. Do we know anything about whether or not the fire department needed that space still yet? I mean,
Well, currently they're storing equipment in it. Like, I'm not real sure what they store in it.
Hazmat trailer, the mass casualty trailer. the ladder
that's
trucks
a lot of
down
stuff.
Without a service. And then the other engine, I think that'll be down there.
so we are using it, it's not just sitting, is what I'm hearing.
Correct, we're storing stuff, yes.
I have a question. Are we getting paid for the storage of that stuff?
It's ours.
It's ours.
Well, then, I don't understand why we just don't put it up for sale.
Wait, so where would we store this stuff if we don't have that facility?
Probably Irving Street, you know, the state highway garages.
Do we have space there?
I would say yes, we do. I mean, the large building there.
I mean, should we?
That's where we actually store a lot of our dump trucks and stuff for the street department.
Should we look into it and make sure we've got the space before we go selling a building that we're using? I mean.
Well, there again, you know, you're gonna have to investigate on how much that building's worth. I mean, we're not just gonna go out and sell it. I mean, you've got to make an educated, you know, appraisal on it. So, if nothing else, let us, you know, at least let us investigate it. At least let us get an appraisal on it so we have an idea, so you have an idea what that facility is worth.
So should we table this until we get an estimate?
Well, what he's saying is he'd like to have permission
Right.
from this group to go out and find an appraisal on the building and find out
Okay.
the value of it. How much does appraisals cost?
Not a commercial buildings, $2,000 to $5,000.
Would that go through McKeever also again, or?
No, McKeever will be only the engineering or, you know, survey.
Okay.
Tell you what, let us find out how much an appraisal would be, but it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, hopefully I don't know if there's any money that would be a Kaylee question. I don't know if there would be a way that we could pay for. I think, what do you think? Just go ahead, go ahead. Let's do it,
so we know a number.
Yeah, at least let us find out how much it's worth. We aren't going to do anything else until we bring it back to the committee.
Money to go out for an appraisal?
I want to take it.
Right.
It's up to you.
I move that we put it up for bid.
I think we should make a motion to look at an appraisal.
And figure out where we're coming up with the money for the appraisal? That's the question.
At least look to see how much the appraisal costs anyway, before we even go
It'd be
further.
nice to find out how much the appraisal costs before we do anything with this.
Right.
I mean, because we can't really go out to bid till we know what the appraisal is, and we have to pay for an appraisal.
So it's going to get tabled in?
What do you guys think? Till the next time?
Yeah, till next time, till we get more information.
Order, you have two motions on the floor there.
Oh,
I'd like to retract my motion.
one motion's retracted. Have I heard a second for any of them? Okay, then that one falls through as well without a second. All right, so are we all okay with tabling it for now?
Yes.
Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and move on to land for the airport.
So that land was included in the property that we leased out at the airport, and that would be leased until the March of 2025. So I have to find out who we leased that to and then reach out or I'll bring that information to you guys. But that wasn't included in our last round of farm lease.
Okay, so that was included until 2025 though?
Yes.
So if nothing else, we can take that part off as of the end of that lease if we can't do
Yeah.
anything prior?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we could. And it's quite plausible too, depending on who the farmer is, and they may not do
And
that.
what part of that is useful to them?
Right. So I just have to, I found the legislation, I just have to find the lease to see who we went out with.
So is there anything that you need us to do while you get that, or we have to wait until we find out that information?
Yeah, we just wait and then I'll bring some more information next time.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
Moving along.
next on the list, removal of property on Let's Drive.
Is that the,
I think what the Lutz property is Lutz used to have apartments down there, and then FEMA came in, and FEMA went ahead and took their money and paid to have all of Lutz property leveled. And then what happened is the property was given to the Crawford County, or Crawford Park District. And so now what Jeff Dunn has done, he's oversees the sewers and the streets, and so what the other piece of the puzzle is the property that we were just talking about, putting that forced main in. We need a place to actually to go ahead and put a grinder pump and a pumping system. And the ideal location is on that concrete old street right-of-way that the Crawford Park District owns, and the Crawford Park District is willing to allow the city to take ownership of it with no cost expenditure, and it would be a benefit for us to be able to have that. We wanted you to know, so you guys know what's happening.
Is there anything that we need to do? I mean, do we have to do? Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Just so you know it. And to explain what the force main was about, currently we have a sewer line that drains the entire north end of Bucyrus. The sewer line comes down through, down to the river, coming through the old Woods property just west of the mobile home park, and it comes down all the way down to the river. The way it was is at one time, many years ago, that sewer line was actually under the riverbed, and over time, as the river has cut its new channel, the sewer line has become exposed above the riverbed, and then recently we had a major sewer break, and so we went ahead and now just recently fixed that sewer line, but with the intention that the EPA says you will no longer be allowed to have that sewer line exposed above the riverbed because there's so many large trees come floating down the river and possibly will break that sewer line again. So what the city has to do is they have to put a pumping station up out of the floodplain, and we will actually pump that sewer down and underneath, 6 feet underneath the riverbed, and then we'll bring it back up the other side, and then we will dump it into a gravity feed sewer, but all within that contained area happens to be that 1 acre of property. And so that's the other key to the whole puzzle, is that 1 acre of ground for $500.
So it all leads together, pieces of the same puzzle. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, then. Do we have anything we need to talk about tonight on open projects? Do we have any more public participation? Okay, seeing none, I am adjourning at 7:29 PM.
7th, 2024.
Platting Committee comes to order at 7:31. Aaron Sherrick, Carolyn Scheimerman, Vicki DeShawn, and James Mead, Chair. Public participation. Platting? Nobody? Approval of the minutes for February 22nd, 2024, regular Platting Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 22nd, 2024 regular Planning Committee meeting.
Thank you, Aaron. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
90-day stop sign trial on Pearl Street, we're all good with that. We discussed it in a previous meeting. Removal of the property on Litz Drive. We're good. And now we have business home occupancy zone. So, this has to do with legislation, an ordinance 118701, accessory buildings and structure. So, did I email you on this, Mr. Gerner?
You did, yes.
So for commercial purposes, we wanted to allow home businesses. Because of COVID and everything, everybody's doing business out of their house, and we need to open it up. So how can we do this, restructure this ordinance to allow people to work out of their homes?
Jim, what was the ordinance number?
It's 1187.01.
1187.01. Okay, thank you.
And so, like, working from home is different than home occupation, right? So a bunch of people are working from home. The home occupation is like actually running that business from home. And then, so right now, you can't build an accessory building and run your side business out of your accessory building. And then we had talked about additions and things to that effect would be considered part of the home. And currently, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's like not more than 25% of your square footage is designated towards the home occupation.
That's all in 1187.03, right? Home occupancy?
Yeah.
So I guess I was looking for some kind of ordinance to alleviate this commercial purposes.
Like, is there something that we can do that makes it easier?
For people to do business out of their house, as long as they don't have 20 employees and a bunch of cars coming in and out.
But you're not wanting to do the business out of your house, correct? You wanted to do it out of an accessory building?
Yeah, so the idea for my business specifically, just because of the nature of the business and it being laundry and it is like a sanitation thing for me, I wanted in the city of Bucyrus to at least be considered for the option of building an extension off of my garage and operating my business out of that. Right now, the only reason I can't do that is because my garage, well, even if my garage was connected to my house, it's still not allowed. It needs to be as an addition to the house, and then the less than 25% of the dwelling of the main square footage. So pretty much all I'm asking, or I guess what my idea would be, is to use, maybe an addendum to that can be written and specify what type of businesses qualify, or there even maybe it could be a committee or something that's in charge of that type of thing, like your at-home business, so that you're supporting your people that work at home. Now, do I work at home all the time? No. But I need a place here in Bucyrus so I can service the Bucyrus community because I have a lot of clients here, and I have my first business here. So I'd like to have an area that's here, because right now I travel to other cities to use an already existing laundromat at a discounted rate because of a deal that I have with that owner. And so I have one in Mansfield, I have one in Galleon, I have one in Marion. I don't have one here that I would go to. So with that being said, there's a couple things though, hold on. I feel like if we could, it could even be demoed. I think even a demo of this type of situation can be run, but it can be utilized by other people. Hairdressers, there's plenty of ladies around here that their side gig is cutting hair, but they're building for their business. If they wanted to do that at home, or they wanted to schedule a client after hours, because that's only when they can come and they can't come to the salon, whatever, they're bringing them to their homes and they're doing it there. I mean, it can be regulated however you see it. It can be zoned out a certain way. I mean, I have drawn up the way I see mine looking. I mean, I think to me it's cut and dry, black and white, in my instance, because I have no going traffic. What I want to do is not some loud mechanic shop. It's not a party center. It's literally 3 washers and 3 dryers, and they're Samsungs. Those things are so quiet now. So, and it's an addition off of my already existing owned property, and I think I should be allowed to do that, but I do think that it needs to be regulated, because I understand why it's in place, because I live there too. I don't want people coming and going to my house. I'm a very private person, usually. So I think I would like to just see a little bit of leniency, or at least a little bit of consideration, where a business comes to you and says, hey, I want to do this, but I really can't afford my kickstart to my business plan is like this much money, and I can't find anything around here to even rent. But that's because my business, I would have to tear it up and make it what I need it to be. So that's where I'm at.
Did you say you have drawings?
Yeah, I have they're so crude. My 9-year-old didn't do them, I did. But so it's just really a basic layout of like my garage, and then what the addition would look like over here on this side. I do have a neighbor who's over here, but I think she's almost 12 feet off of what my measurements would be, so I might not even need like the whole variance. You guys can pass around. I have my business plan, I have everything, but the first page of my business plan too does, like, under the goals and objectives, it tells you all about like what my plan would be for that structure.
Now, this isn't anything that would have to go through, I'm trying to think, like our appeals boards?
Right, so that would be my recommendation. We change the ordinance to allow the Board of Zoning Appeals to hear home occupancy request for variance, so that on an individual case-by-case basis, you go in before the Board of Zoning Appeals, pitch your idea, and then they could give you permission to proceed with that project on a temporary basis, or on we want to see what you do for 6 months, we want to see where we're at, make sure, give all of your neighbors notice so that anybody can come to this hearing. I mean, they do a lot of variance work anyway, so I think that would, rather than trying to specifically pick and make a ordinance about these are the businesses, because businesses change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever's I can think up right now, or whatever we can think up right now, in 6 months, there will be 7 new different businesses. So giving the zoning board the ability to sit down with you and with anybody interested in that specific request, discuss it, grant a variance, grant a conditional permit to have that home occupation approved. I think that would probably be the
Would it be the
most.
home occupation, or would it be the accessory? It's the accessory structure.
Same concept, all right.
But
I'm
yeah,
just
see, but I
talking,
get what
yeah.
you're saying though,
I'm
because
just talking.
people do have that, I'm sure that they may
Right.
have a little bit of land and maybe even to expand, and I'm talking
Right.
about the,
Yeah,
business
no, I
owners
was-
that knit hats and, you
I was
know.
gonna say, if we did something like that, wouldn't it have to say something like home or private property variance? Like, that way if it's an accessory dwelling, we've got to, I mean, we'd have to give them permission to allow that as something that they could do a variance with, because right now it's not.
In that
Right.
residential area,
In
that
a
type of
residential area.
residential area especially.
Right, so I don't have the code in front of me, but yes, so creating a variance, or giving this Board of Zoning Appeals the ability to issue variances or to issue permits on these types of situations.
Also, I just think it's a fair idea, because I can tell you right now what my margins are with my Bucyrus customers versus what my margins are with my Galleon customers or Marion customers, Mansfield customers, and my margins are so much lower for my Bucyrus customers because I don't have a place to work. So I make money, you make money, I get to stay home with my kids and live out my dream, and everybody wins, if you ask me, at least.
You explained it a lot better than I could.
I know, that's why I was like, oh, please let me get up there.
Hi, Kurt. Go ahead.
The current zoning code allows for a home occupation if the business is located within the home, which if that's what you were doing, it sounds like we've already got provisions to allow that. You could go that route. The building you're wanting to build, how many square feet is it?
Where's my little paper floating around?
12 by 16.
Well, yeah, whatever the math is on that, I have it written on the side.
12 by 24.
Yeah, 12, or it's a 20, my garage is 22 by 24, and I'd like to put the addition on there of a 12 by 24. So it'd be the same length as the garage, 12 feet off of that.
So it's not,
total square
it's
footage.
not
no.
significant.
It's a shotgun style thing off of a
So in
garage.
here's what I'm thinking. Can this building, or this addition, can you also like, maybe end up using it for something else personally, which would be allowed? And then, so what I'm saying is,
Okay, go ahead.
if we allow home occupations now, why can't this, I think we're overthinking this, is what I'm saying here. Like, you can put an accessory structure up currently, and if your business is is it dry cleaning?
It's a laundry pickup and delivery
Laundry
business,
pickup
yep.
and delivery. So if somebody comes to your house, if you go through the process and allow the home occupation, and we allow the home, or the BZA allows the home occupation, somebody comes to your house, or I don't know if you leave your house and go get that and you bring it back to your house. Like if these machines were in the house, it sounds like it wouldn't be as complicated.
Well, it's more,
But,
that's a
but
sanitary
what I'm
thing for
thinking
me.
here is if your business is in your house, and I'm assuming you're gonna be, doing your paperwork and your computer's in your house and all that, what do we care if you walk out the back door and take them clothes and put it in a machine in this other accessory structure?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, why, it sounds like we're way overcomplicating
I
this
feel like,
here.
I feel like I understand why it exists because of like traffic, and we're thinking residential. I live in my area too, so I'm aware, and I also wouldn't want my neighbors across the street opening a mechanic shop and having 10 cars, or being allowed.
Yeah, like-
So there might be a certain, but I do think it needs to be managed. Do I think that it needs to just like,
I
somebody would
think
come
if-
through and apply, you say yes or no, and that's it?
In my mind, like, maybe it was misunderstood by whoever you initially told this to, and they kind of just way overcomplicated it. It sounds like
No,
what
it's-
you're wanting to do now can already be done without us
It's illegal
changing
in the city
anything.
of Bucyrus for me to operate my building out of an accessory structure. I can do it all day long and you not know about it, but that's illegal. I am not interested in running my business
Yeah,
that
but
way.
your
and there's other
business
people
is
that
actually
are.
home-based.
It's
You're
not in
just-
my home, it's in my accessory building. So the answer right off the bat is no. That's my trip. That's the only trip is like, it's like 3 words.
It's 6 months to change all this.
I know.
The zoning stuff.
I'm ready.
For commercial purposes.
It's worth
I
it.
think the
It's
law
worth it for
director-
other business owners in this town, and there's other people like me. And if we are in a desperate need of money and new businesses and everything else, and you have got to facilitate those people that are trying to do that in this town still, because there are few and far in between, I promise you that. Trust me.
Well, okay, let me throw this
I might
other
even be
scenario out
interested
there.
in-
Somebody has a home-based business, they operate out of their house, but there's a shovel, they have a shovel and they don't store the shovel in their house, they store it in the accessory building. Does that make that whole accessory building then illegal?
Okay, Aaron, you want to say something?
Okay, so we would just need a motion to add accessory buildings onto the
No, so like.
thing that we already have,
It
and a
says the
case
use
by
of all
case.
accessory structures shall conform to the definitions above, and no accessory structure shall be used for human habitation or for commercial purposes, comma, without a variance from the Bucyrus Board of Zoning Appeals.
So that's the wording we need?
That's what I'm
May
gonna
may I
do.
make a motion to have that wording added?
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Excellent.
But don't we still have to have the public hearing?
Yeah.
But,
We'll have a
but
public
first
hearing.
we have to go through this.
My business, I'll have trouble with one of them, so hopefully one of
It's
them.
okay.
Hopefully one of them doesn't, stop my business, but.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On that topic, if you're just changing the ordinance, you don't have to have a public hearing, do you? Because now it's allowed by ordinance.
The public hearing will be for the variance.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my first question. But if the ordinance, you don't need to ask for a variance if you're changing the ordinance. She can start doing this the minute you pass that legislation.
Well, it's on a case-by-case thing.
Then, which brings me to my next point. You made a mention that you could give her like a 6-month. I'd like to see you get rid of that because she's going to spend money to build on the structure and to buy these machines, and then hopefully in 6 months I'm allowed to continue. I think if somebody's going to make an investment, we need to
Think about
protect
it.
their
You got
investment.
drain, you got electrics.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm saying that
They can do that.
you're spending too much time. But you're not, that's one of the authorities of your Board of Zoning Appeals is to grant conditions
Okay.
on approvals. So not in this circumstance would it make sense to conditionally approve you building a $20,000 addition to your garage with, hundreds of dollars.
maybe in 6 months we're
Right.
going to keep using it.
That, but the Board of Zoning Appeals would come up with a workable plan if they were going to approve it so that, if there were any concerns. This one, there probably wouldn't be as many concerns as some guy that was running, I don't know, garage. Right. Right. They're not, I mean, these people on the Board of Zoning Appeals are not archaic. They understand all of these. I mean, other
But
than Mr.
if you change anything in the zoning code, doesn't that trigger the ORC requirements of you have to have the public hearing and then it's got to be posted for so many days up in the window in the zoning office and?
I'm looking it up.
I would be more than open to like what he's talking about, but I would want a longer stint. Like, so I would want 3 years or something like that where, you guys can check it on me every time you want to come by and see me. I'll miss you.
It should be permanent.
Just kidding. It is, yeah.
Once you
It
present your
doesn't
plan, it
matter
should be
because even
permanent.
if I sell my house, it's adding value to the home and the property too, so that's a plus. But if I ran my business as like a trial, I would also be very interested in asking for some type of, I don't even know how I would ask that, but we'll get
You shouldn't
to
ask
it.
for it as a trial. It
Well,
should
when I-
be, you present a plan as permanent.
I thought you
Right.
said
Take that
6
from us.
months, and then it would take 6 months before
Well,
this.
by the time you do all the things and it going into effect and 3 readings. and-
That's where the 6 months came
Yeah.
in. You aren't saying to
And
her that once it's
there's-
approved, she only
there's-
has 6 months
So
to do it.
the
or
requirements that I understand to be in the ORC, if we don't follow this proper process, and we improperly do it, and then one of your neighbors doesn't like it, there's a 2-year window, I believe, where they can file something in the courts, and basically, you know, you thought that we got this all done legally, and then boom, now it could be up in the air.
My timeline on my business plan for this business plan, because I have a couple, obviously, for every option that I was looking at, but I'm 6 months out anyway. I have to get people out there for plumbing. I would like to know what you guys want it to look like from an electrical and from a water standpoint, because to me, it would operate as a completely separate entity at the same address. So everything would be, like, I would have, you know, my own electric bill to that little square footage for the Vanek Laundry Co. I would have my own electrical, my own gas, and I can pay to get all of that ran and my own layout exactly what
Are
I
you
want.
calling this a commercial building?
I'm calling it a-
Because
a
at that
room with
point,
three
that also
laundries.
triggers with this Richland County
It's
commercial
not a-
building inspection stuff, and it's gonna come in and
Don't
We-
have to be so many square feet.
they're gonna want you to have, no, there's, it's not based on square footage, it's based off of, does the city view that structure as being a commercial structure? You don't want,
I don't think so.
Richland
because I'm not
County in
using
there.
it for commercial purposes, I would say. It's not large scale enough for that, and nor
Richland-
does it plan to be.
if Richland County gets triggered, you're gonna be required to have PE stamped drawings, licensed electrician and all that stuff, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I already have some of it actually, because I was looking at that building, then I ran into that whole environmental thing. So, like I said, I'm oddly prepared for this. The only thing I wasn't prepared for was talking to you guys. So that's done now, and I'm hoping that, you know, I'm interested and open for ideas, because I think eventually if you do make this change, it needs to be managed or monitored, or even, you know, like somebody watching over it. I might be interested in something like that. I mean, as a part of something like that. So it's just food for thought down the line. Sorry, I'll stop talking now.
I think it should depend on how good you get white clothes clean.
I'm on for that, I'll tell you.
I already know.
Brian said he'd be right back. I'm not quite sure where he went.
Okay, while he's gone, is there any open projects? Anybody want to discuss anything?
Mm-mm.
Come on, Carol, there's gotta be something on there you want to talk about.
No, I just said my 2 cents.
Anything need taken off here?
Guess I didn't look at it. Do you have it?
Right. You have to refer it to the planning commission to get the planning commission's approval or recommendation. And then, once they give you a recommendation, they refer a proposed amendment back to the Platting Committee, who then holds a public hearing. And then, after the public hearing, we, council as a whole, could vote on it, and then 30 days thereafter, provided that there's no petition for a ballot initiative, that part would become law.
Okay,
Don't I have that 3 readings?
Mike, if it's a, yeah, 30
Okay.
days after the,
You
after
gotta go to
the
the
vote
planning
on it.
commission first.
Gotta go to the planning commission first, yeah.
okay, so as a part of my motion, should I add to go to the planning commission?
Yeah.
Okay, may I amend my motion to go to the planning commission as part of it?
Right, so I'll prepare legislation to present to the planning commission to consider.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Planning. Motion passed.
Jim, you were asking if anything needed to come off the open
Yes, ma'am.
project update. I think we could take off 1145 West Mansfield Street. We took care of that Tuesday, and that was done as an emergency. I'm on platting, right? Am I looking at the right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm on plan. Jackson
Well, wait a
Street,
minute.
right?
What if the county prosecutor still finds that something wasn't done right and they've got to send it back to us again? So should you wait till they get their thing finalized before we take it off?
Well, on Tuesday, you said they would approve it. Now you're changing your mind?
There's been instances in the past where I've been wrong.
That's why you want to leave it on.
Can we get that in the minutes?
I need that in the minutes.
2024 street program, there's no legislation required. You know, that was when they came and
So
gave
we
their
can take
report
that
about the,
In Jackson Street.
Yeah, Jackson Street vacation.
but was Jackson, no, Jackson, good
Still
Lord,
has a
Vicki.
third reading.
Jackson
Oh, it
Street
still has
wasn't
a
an
third
emergency, we just had our second reading.
Right.
So that one needs to stay on.
Oh, okay.
So we'll take off 2024 street program. We'll leave on 1145 West Mansfield Street. Make Kurt happy. And then we'll take off Jackson, or no, we leave that on. That's right, we have one more reading to go.
So
How's that
two-
look?
224 street programs.
Yeah.
All right. Public participation. Amen. Meeting's adjourned.
7:56.
7:56. says Aaron.
Economic Development Committee, March 7th, 2024.
I will call Economic Development to order at 7:59. Members present are Vicki DeShawn, Carolyn Shireman, Christopher Moritz, and myself, Zion Hickman, Chair. We have any public participation for Economic Development? Seeing none, moving on to the approval of minutes from the February 22nd regular Economic Development meeting.
We're on the minutes. I approve the February 22nd, 2024 regular Economic Development Committee meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a first from Ms. DeShawn, a second from Mr. Moritz. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to open project. Ordinance number 34, 2019 can be taken off because that was passed.
Yep.
And the appointment of library trustees can also be taken off because that was passed. Still working on JED. I'm behind, I know. Moving on to further public participation. Seeing none, I will adjourn at 7:59.
Oh, Kurt.
Oh, wait, okay, never mind. Going back.
No, he said he adjourned.
Yeah, it's over.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. Is this the right committee for the bed tax thing?
I would.
No.
It's
I
not?
don't think so. I think that's finance.
Wait, we don't
Okay.
take care of that tax? Okay. I thought that was us. Okay.
That's next.
Okay, any further public participation? Seeing none, I will adjourn at 8 p.m.
Finance Committee, March 7th, 2024.
Call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 8:01 PM. Members present, James Me, Christopher Moritz, Vicki DeShawn, and myself, Chair. Any public participation for finance? Name and address, please.
Adam Heinlein, 1100 West Mansfield Street, President Bucyrus Bratwurst Festival. I just wanted to, I know I talked at length at council about the ordinance for Bucyrus Bratwurst Festival paying for the cleanup and all that. Just wanted to hit on some more points, as I know it's been referred back to you guys for further, to look at further. Bucyrus Bratwurst Festival does support the community in more ways than just having the Bratwurst Festival. We're here throughout the year for all the events that are pretty much held in the downtown area. We're providing electrical hookups, electrical boxes, volunteer time, and the labor to get these or get these other events going downtown. First Fridays, anything like that. Car shows, the bike show with the police, we help with that as well. Just some things to consider if we have to put this back into our budget. Those services that we provide are free. We will have to start charging for use of our equipment and time. And if they decide to go elsewhere, those prices can add up fairly quickly if you're hiring electricians to put in outside drops to facilitate them having vendors and stuff like that. Another thing that needs to be considered is the nonprofits that come to the Bratwurst Festival. A lot of their budget relies, or I won't say a lot, but majority of their budget relies on the funds that they get at the festival to, keep their programs going. Church groups downtown, they charge for parking and stuff like that. That's how they get some of their income. Local beer gardens are something else that'll be affected. Basically, it's just trickle-down economics. If we have to account for this in our budget again, there are going to be things that we have to do in order to maintain the festival and being able to put that on for the community. And one other question that I wanted to bring forward was if this ordinance is passed and the Bratwurst Festival is made to pay for city services, is this going to be the standard for all other events that are held in the downtown area, i.e. the car shows, bike shows, First Fridays, Memorial and Christmas Day parades, and other events that utilize city crews for cleanup and protection downtown? One last thing that I wanted to bring up, I know Kevin kind of gets a lot of flack for being on the festival and city council. He is our director. He reports to the board and we tell him what to do. He's not in any of the decision-making processes and he's not a voting member of our board. So if there are questions, there are policies out there to meet with our board if you have questions. So just please be aware of that. So that's all I got for you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect. I met regarding the bed tax with Mrs. Grau up at the chamber, and we went over some stuff, and I'm satisfied that the money situation is, all the money's been accounted for. She said basically they've been not having expenses the last couple of years. They've had some, but not enough, not a lot, and they have basically built up money in their checking account because the bed tax money was continually still going in to them. And we discussed the ordinance that we typically have to pass and have in effect for them to get the bed tax money. And at one point prior, there was mention of maybe having it be a permanent thing. I told her, I said, I don't know. I thought maybe we should keep it as every year, every 2 years. And she said, yeah, I understand that, and I think that's the right route to go. And then I also asked her if we could maybe get like a quarterly update. And I said, you don't have to come here to give the update, just make a one-page, like a Word document saying, what's going on, what did you guys do, what did you guys spend the money on or something. And she was fine with that. And she said she still wanted to come here. So I said, okay, well then you could give the update in person. And so I guess at this point is, because I don't want them to operate for a long time without the ordinance in effect. Should we start getting movement on the ordinance? Or, I guess what's the situation with the Finance Committee with that ordinance right now is what I'm asking.
Say a couple things.
Yeah, go ahead.
First off, your comment that she said she would be, I don't know how you said it, fine with giving us a report. She has to give us a report. Per Ohio Revised Code, I had brought this up to Mr. White, who in turn came and told council of this section. That's a requirement. Semi-annual reports are to be given on the use of the expenditures, and the report shall be made to the legislative authority by the chief officer implementing the joint agreement. So these reports, they're mandatory.
Yet they haven't happened.
And they have not happened. I personally would like to see maybe them go back several years to just give us a report. And then, of course, from going forward, doing these semi-annual reports. Like I say, it's right there in the Ohio Revised Code.
If I could interrupt you
Sure.
real quick. similar to what we do with Mr. Zach and the partnership, it's in their contract that it's quarterly. While the ORC says semi-annually, my suggestion is going to be that when we do the next legislation, if we do with the Tourism Bureau, that we ask for it quarterly as well. But I like Mrs. DeShawn's idea about asking them to just give us a synopsis of the last several years so that we just, I appreciate you saying you went up and looked at it and met with her and all that. That's great, because that was one of the questions I wanted to have answered, and I feel confident in your inspection of that. But I'd like for us as a council and us as a public to just have a synopsis of, you know, if we brought in all this money and didn't spend any, tell us that and we're good. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Mrs. DeShawn.
Okay, now, you were questioning if we were going to be working on this because you didn't want them sitting and not having funds. A check was cut to the Bucyrus Tourism Bureau on November the 9th, 23, for $24,663.27. Then a check, and I don't have that check in front of me, but Kaylee, it was just written.
Yeah, early February.
And that was for $14,435.06. So, I mean, without having these semi-annual reports from before, I don't know what they're using the monies for, but, I mean, I think they have some funds that they're sitting on that they're not.
And to your point, did we just cut a check in, but we don't have an agreement in place?
It was the fourth quarter.
From that, okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, I questioned that as well, yeah.
So I recently had a conversation with her last month Bruce was there. There's about 9,000 in their pocket right now.
90?
90?
And it's only supposed to be spent on bringing tourism to the community.
Well, they've actually got about 40 to 50 earmarked already for 2024, going into next year. I don't know exactly what it was for, but.
My suggestion is let's put that on our agenda for our next meeting and invite her here so that there can be a back and forth, and just maybe somebody reach out to her and request her presence and ask her to bring, information such as what Mrs. DeShawn has asked for tonight, and that way then we're all on the same page.
So, semi-annual reports, I mean, for how many years would we like to see those for?
Is there a way to find out when the last time, if ever, we got one?
Oh, I don't.
Because my first answer is if we got one back in 2010, then I want them back to 2010. But if there's no way to know that, then I think at least 3 years.
I'm fine with the 3 years.
Yeah.
Or right before COVID, honestly. I think, if you can go back to 2020.
Okay, I'm okay with that. So then see if she can bring those with her at the next meeting, our next council meeting.
I would say to the next finance committee so that
Oh,
we can
finance,
have, so we
okay,
can have a
excuse
back
me.
and forth conversation
Gotcha.
and
Okay, wonderful.
not just somebody standing at the podium speaking and then nothing.
And then if she could have those for you to include in the council or in the committee packets,
Yeah.
that would be great, so we have some time to look them over.
Do you want me to put finance first and then you can recess for her to be able to?
I have
do
no
that?
problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could start first, let her get that out of the way, and then we could reconvene at the end, at the very end. Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's a good idea.
Change of subject. I'd also like to comment on the Bratwurst Festival, and I don't know if I can address people in the audience or if I have to be addressing the committee itself.
I'll give you variance.
You'll give me a variance? Mr. Heinlein, would you be, knowing that you guys are a private organization receiving basically taxpayer subsidization, would you be willing to open your financials up for public inspection?
I'll talk to my board and give you the answer at this time.
Okay, because I've had some people tell me they think that to be wise stewards of our taxpayer funds in this certain scenario, they thought that we should be seeing, just how the money is so that we know. Because for all we know, you guys could be, I'm not saying this is happening, but I'm you guys could be giving yourselves salaries and things, and we just don't know what is going on with the money and stuff.
Okay, I'll talk to my board.
Okay.
Any other public participation for finance?
Ken Long, 625 South Spring Street. Mine's real simple. Is there any movement on the pool?
So where we're at on the pool, when we put together our budget last year, there was money set aside for the pool. And given our current financial situation, the administration, in their full authority, made the decision that they are going to not expend those funds as a cost-saving measure, and that's where we are currently. I think you could address your question to them if there's any further movement, but they've got the right to say we're not going to open the pool. They also have the right to come in tomorrow and take a look at things and say, maybe we can't open the pool. And so I think your question really doesn't, you can ask it here in this forum, fine. It's really out of council's hands at this point. You know, it's an administrative function, and they're doing their job by trying to be good stewards of the city's money, and that was their fix. It's not, here's the thing, when you're when money's great, nobody's ever angry about anything. Once we start having to make cuts here and there, you're gonna make somebody mad. And reading social media that the town's in an uproar because there's nothing for the kids to do now. Okay, well, there's lots of things for the kids to do. In this instance, going to the pool may not be one of them because we don't have the money to do it. That's where that stands. So that's really a function of the administration to make those decisions. I get it that there's not, you know, they don't have a mayor's meeting like we have a council meeting, so this is your opportunity, and if they have anything they want to add, they're more than welcome to.
Well, before I do, I have a question on the how this works, because the group, the council appropriated that money. It's in a budget, and I guess that means to me that, okay, it's locked in, no matter what it is. Okay, I'm using the pool as an example because it's near and dear.
Yeah.
All right, so you're saying that the ORC says that the administration can line item that out after.
No, I'm not saying that at all. That money is
work?
placed, we as a council place that money in that line.
Yes.
They don't have to spend it. We could put in there that we as a council could decide that we want to give $10 million to this. They don't have to spend it. It just, when it's in that line, they have the authority to spend it. We've given them that authority. They've made that decision to hold back on that as a cost-saving measure.
See, I thought it was, in layman's words, I guess I thought it was a requirement to spend it.
No.
Where you're saying it's there if the city chooses to.
And that's the way with every single portion of our budget. Now, there's things, required by the EPA and things like that are legally that they have to pay for. But anything that we've allotted money to, they don't have to spend it.
I see. Well, thanks. I appreciate the clarification.
Sure.
I didn't know how that worked.
Hey, and that's the thing, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And I guess I'll wait to talk to the administration, out of public view, just to get a feel for that. So I don't put anybody on the spot.
Absolutely.
I'm learning as I go here, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Leading off that, taxation levies were referred, and they are in open projects for Finance Committee. Could we ask the voters for a 3/4 of a mil property tax levy dedicated to keeping that pool funded every year? And then we'd never again have this situation of, is the pool going to be funded this year? And I almost think that, give it to the voters to decide.
Right. I think, to answer your question, yes, you could put anything on as a tax if you want to. I've asked to get a date set where we can have, the department heads and the administration, the auditor all together, so we can start discussing this. While if we continue just to talk about it in the Finance Committee without meeting with all these people, we don't have a plan. And I think that's kind of what happened, last year when we had our safety forces levy. We didn't have a good enough solid plan. And so what I'd like to do is get, a couple of us together to discuss, put a solid plan together, bring that plan into here to go with it.
I mean,
so.
that pool levy would be so small, it would be hardly nothing on your property tax, but it would guarantee that pool.
It would be small until you start looking at all the other small things that you want to make sure you're guaranteeing or paid for, and then all of a sudden we're at 20 mils. So to your question, yeah, when we get together, and I'd like to have you included in those meetings, that's something we definitely should look at, all the things that are important to us.
Because
and
every
important
time
to
we run
the
short,
residents.
it's the pool. The pool's the first thing that gets.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is because it's an expense, it's not a moneymaker. Low-hanging fruit. Any other public participation? All right, we're going to move on. You have before you the minutes from the February 22nd, 2024 regular Finance Committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moritz, second by Mr. Me. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved the same? Or that's approved, no, opposed the same, that's approved. As far as selling the lots by Wendy's, any further discussion on this committee for that? Purchasing land of the EPA, same as the other two committees. I would just ask for a motion from this committee to grant our blessing to the administration to pursue that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Me, second by Mr. Moritz. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Selling of the North End Fire Station, nothing came out of the Public Lands and Building Committee, so we will do nothing with that. Ms. Lewis, you're up. Creation of consumer trust funds for utilities.
All right, I'm going to shorten this up a little bit for everybody. So I spoke with the state auditor today, and she said that she would hold, I was trying to get ahead of the game and create these funds when we start revenuing it in, we're ready for the utilities. She said to hold off until the utility ordinance has been gone through and is passed, and then just in case any changes happen. So I'm going to hold off on the enterprise, or the consumer trust funds for utilities, but if we could keep it on the books, that would be great. Creation of an OBI fund. So Chief Ossenheimer contacted me, said that he had reached out to some people and that we should have a OBI fund similar to a drug. I think it's drug law enforcement fund. And then when we receive fees from the court systems for OBI specifically, it would go into that fund. And then they could use the money on things that would assist them with OBIs. And then the creation of a debt fund for the new wastewater treatment plant. Also speaking to the auditor today, she had said that that is not needed and that it should be a part of the enterprise fund. So we don't need that one at all. And I'm done.
So your request is still to create the OVI fund?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how much money annually we're talking about?
It's not a lot. I mean,
Not thousands and thousands and thousands of
no,
dollars?
right now we've been getting it, but it's been lumped in with just our regular fines, I believe. It's not a bunch of money.
Okay. Do you need that as an emergency?
I think the chief would like it as an emergency, so.
As money is coming in to set that aside?
Yeah, and I can read this for you really quickly if you'd like. So creation of fund for the use of OVI-related monies, 836 OVI Law Enforcement Fund, Department 7110, Police Department, item 24 Materials and Supplies, and item 25 Capital Outlay.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to create the OVI fund
Make a motion.
as an emergency, sir?
As an emergency. Second.
I have a motion for emergency legislation, setting up the OVI fund from Mr. Moritz with a second by Mr. Me. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Motion carries. All right, Mr. Gerner, you had asked to speak here. Was that where you wanted to speak?
Is that the, yeah. So there had been some questions pertaining to, obviously, you guys identified that Mr. Myers here is on a festival director. I think that's your official title.
Yeah, if I were an employee, I would be their employee, but I'm a volunteer, so.
Festival director, volunteer, non-paid. So I had gotten some questions about whether it would be ethical and proper, or if there was a conflict of interest, and just in the interest of making sure that everybody is happy moving forward, I'm going to read this and then give you an answer. So I would
you're
like
asking-
to table that until I have the time to get through all of that.
Any objection from the committee to tabling this for Mr. Grove to do his research? All right.
Thank you.
Any open projects that anybody wishes to bring up for finance this evening? Mrs. DeShawn?
No.
Mr. Me?
No.
Mr. Moritz?
No.
Hearing none. Any public participation?
We had a meeting with the state auditor today. Do we want to update everybody on what came of that? Vicki?
Nope.
Any other public participation? Hearing none. Finance Committee is adjourned at 8:23 PM.